welcome everybody to the USO MVP Entertainment Series. Thank you for joining us, and as always, thank you for your service wherever you're tuning in from around the globe. We hope you're safe and happy and healthy. It's my pleasure to welcome today filmmaker Deon Taylor. Deon, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining me.
Man, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me, man. This is actually a blessing to be able to do this right now with everyone, man. My entire family, with the exception of me, is all military, man. So I'm really excited to be here, man. My dad's a Vietnam vet. My brother served in Iraq. My cousin served in Iraq. So it's a blessing to be here, man.
That's great. That's so cool. I love the fact that you come from a military family, so you get it. You understand what these servicemen and women are doing out there in the world, keeping us safe. You and I have something in common. We were both born in Chicago.
Okay.
I was born on North Park. I know you didn't grow up in Chicago. You grew up in Gary, Indiana.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your background, and I love your story, man. I mean, you kind of decided early that you wanted to be a filmmaker, and you made it happen. So tell us a little bit about your background and where you grew up and how you got into the business.
Yeah, man, I basically, we would be here all night if I really dove in, man. But, obviously, like so many of us, I come from Gary, Indiana, man. At the time I was there, it was deemed the murder capital of the world. I didn't know that, you know what I mean? Because you just kind of grow up in these environments and you just know that's life. And single family home, basically just trying to figure it out like everybody else, man. My dad worked in the steel mill at the time when he came from, I got out of the military. Mom and dad split up and, just trying to do what you could do. And I obviously ended up having a really cool talent, which was I played basketball. And basketball was a way that I actually got out, if you will. I was a really good basketball player, ended up getting a Division I scholarship, attended San Diego State University. And after school, man, I ended up, obviously like so many people trying to make it to the league with that dream. And ended up playing basketball overseas. I was in Germany, in East Germany, in a small city called Chemnitz. And that's where I actually kind of like got the bug for film. At the time, I didn't speak the language. And at the time, my girlfriend was sending me DVDs. And I ended up, this is for everybody out there that's 19, 20 years old, there was no Netflix. There was all this stuff we doing, man. It was none of that. It was like either a DVD or nothing. And I ended up getting these DVDs and she would send me a pack of them at a time. And because I would run through the movie so fast, I ended up watching the making of. And I became very intrigued with how movies were made. And little did I know at the time, man, that I had already had a calling. God, long time ago, man, had something in me about film. Like I was a kid in classroom getting in trouble because I'm quoting Predator or, quoting 48 Hours, you know what I mean? Or whatever that is. I was always a movie guy in my group. And yeah, man, I finished playing ball and came back and was like, man, I really got this idea to write this script. And I thought that you could take a screenplay, go to LA, talk to some people, and you could get a movie. I really thought that. And me thinking that took me on almost like a 7-year journey, man, like with this screenplay. And everywhere we went, it was no. Sometimes they would say, take your out there and come back in until you know again. So I'm like, man, like this is the coldest place in the world, LA. So I was like, I don't know what to do. And finally, this man came to me. It was a producer at the time. And he changed my life with one conversation. And he was like, let me tell you something, man, they're never gonna make your film. And I'm like, what you mean they're never gonna make my film? And everywhere you went, it was like, you don't have any experience, you didn't write nothing. It was like, kind of like, how do you get experience if you can't get it, right? And he was like, the only way you're gonna make your film is if you go make it yourself. And that I had never thought about that. I had never heard that. Obviously you hear some stories, but you're so programmed to understand that you could go to these giant studios and they would actually make your movie, you know what I mean? Help you with your script, whatever that is, you just think it's that way. And he was like, do you know what a producer does? And I'm like, yeah, I know what a producer does. What are you talking about? He's like, no, do you know? And I'm like, well, yeah, the producer is the person that, I gave him this technical answer. The producer is the person that works on the movie, helps you get stuff done, and, and they could move things around. And he said, no, that ain't what they do. He said, a producer produces the money. A producer produces the film. And that was the first time I went, oh, producer. That means to produce. You know what I mean? That means to produce the product. So that goes further than just a film slogan. That's more like, no, it's what it actually means. Can you go get the money? Can you actually go produce film? Anyways, that took me on a journey, man, where I basically now changed how I was thinking, changed what I was looking at, and I threw away everything in my life in terms of like going to studios. And now the mission became, can you go raise the money to go make your movie? And that was an actual position that I felt good in because I could actually control my destiny. Unlike before where, you're basically hoping somebody says yes to you, This way I'm like, no, I can say yes to myself and I can go find enough money to actually make this thing that I want to make. And we ended up doing it, man. So the first time I ever walked on a movie set, I was the writer, director, producer. My girlfriend at the time was the producer of the film. We hired everybody we could hire. And, I said action and had no experience whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I was scared, the most scared I've ever been in my life. And yeah, man, 14 years later, we're here, man. Now looking back, I'm like, man, I really jumped off of a bridge and took a chance. And, here we are now, 2019, last year, with two of the biggest releases in the country and both independently done. So that was a blessing for me.
That's great. Congratulations on that. I want to remind everybody who is zooming in that you can use your Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to type in a question, and I will relay that to Deon. We'll try to get to as many of those as possible. And Deon, you mentioned a couple things that I want to revisit. First of all, very cool that you are a San Diego State Aztec.
Yes, sir.
Did you pave the way for Kawhi Leonard then? You
already know I did, man. No, Kawhi is a rare find, man. I mean, he's a rare find, but Kawhi is a beast, man. But I actually when I was there, Marshall Faulk was there.
Yeah.
Kyle Turley, Oz Hakeem, big football. San Diego State's always been a big football school. Actually, on my basketball team was Tony Clark, baseball player who's now, I think Tony's runs the commission for the baseball league, for the MLB, I think. But yeah, man, some great people, man.
That's cool. And now you mentioned the film Predator, and I doing my research on you, this was so cool. When you were growing up, you had 3 movies to watch. You had Predator, you had Golden Child, and you had Platoon. So you had a little bit of everything. You had a drama, you had a comedy, and you had basically a thriller or a scary movie.
Yeah.
That's amazing that you had those 3 movies in particular because it kind of hit each genre of film. And you just watch those over and over again. That was really kind of the birth of your love of movies, right?
Yeah. You know what's funny, man? I think about that a lot. Like, why those 3 movies? And I haven't been able to answer that, but we definitely, now we're going back a little bit further, young people. We're going to VHS tapes. We're rewinding here, man. Yeah, we had those 3 movies on a VHS and 2 VHS tapes. And, those, they never came out the VCR. And all my friends, high school basketball, everybody, I had, obviously like young men, you got two friends that practically live with you. You know what I mean? So all we did was watch those 3 movies. And I never knew why I loved Platoon so much. I just remember that was the movie that, I just remember how vibrant that film was and what it represented. And I had no experience with any of that. It just really, really was very well done. You know what I mean? And then obviously Predator was, a cult classic, man. We didn't know that at the time, but if it bleeds, we could kill it, get to the chopper, all that stuff, you just love that, man. Carl Weathers and CIA got you pushing too many pencils. Like, I just know that whole movie still, and then The Golden Child was just Eddie. It was a time of Eddie Murphy. I still believe like that movie's a sleeper. You know what I mean? In terms of like when you really think film. And I've talked to people a lot and say, hey man, have you ever seen The Golden Child? And I'm surprised how many people haven't seen Can I Have the Knife, Please? Like, it's like, that movie is so funny to me. But yeah, those three, I believe in a very strange way, architected what I am today. And for a lot of people that don't know who I am probably, between myself and Roxanne, who's my producing partner, we're probably the only Black filmmakers that actually do all three genres of film. So we have had horror, which is The Intruder, Dennis Quaid, Michael Ealy. I love those as straight thrillers. I call those a box thriller. We have done comedies like Meet the Blacks, which puts us in a completely different spectrum. And then we have had movies like Black and Blue that are, drama, thriller, you know what I mean? So these are three different genres that normally Hollywood does not allow, most minority filmmakers to play in those boxes like that. But because we have been able to do these things independently, it has allowed us to be very vast in how I approach film. So I'm out of the box. So I like the idea that you could draw out of the box and make cool stuff however you feel, as long as you have a great theme. And most of the themes that I have in every movie. So if you look at any movie, no matter if we made it for $100,000 or $5 million, the theme of the film is the same, which is adversity. I love adversity in the core of any movie. So if you think of something as funny as like a Meet the Blacks, the theme in that film was Carl Black did something wrong, came out of Chicago, lied to a bunch of people, owed a bunch of money. So on the night of the purge, all these people are going to come get him, right? And basically, what is that? His theme was for him to actually overcome the lie, find out humanity, find out who he was, divulge to his family that he did wrong. This is a comedy, right? And basically come clean. And adversity is at the center of that. Same with Black and Blue. When you go to, Oscar nominated Naomi Harris opposite Tyrese Gibson, a thought thriller. And you're like, what is this movie about? Well, she has to overcome and have adversity through Black and Blue, which is the line between that the police are straddling, you know what I mean, in our communities. And so I love that theme. No matter what it is, I've found that you could have that theme and you could place that theme in any film. You have to find your own thing, but that's my thing. And when I learned a while ago, as a Black filmmaker, when I learned that, oh man, you guys are normally put in these types of boxes. And I'm going like, well, why? So I'm like, I don't want to be in that box because I grew up with Predator, Platoon, and The Golden Child, right? So I'm like, I like these movies. And it took me a year or two to figure out, like I said, well, look, let me explain this to a lot of people so they understand. Steven Spielberg made Jaws and The Color Purple. So I'm like, that means I can do anything. If you can make those two films, I'm like, okay, I can do whatever I want to do and you can't tell me I cannot. And I love it, man. Most recently we got the two-time Academy Award winner Hilary Swank in a new film called Fatale, which is like Fatal Attraction. But I just love the energy of just being able to create whatever you want.
That's a great comparison, by the way, and really, the range that Steven Spielberg has shown throughout his career. And amazing to think that Jaws was his first big movie, and he just absolutely crushed it right out of the box. Deon, let's get to a couple of questions. This one sounds like this guy knows a little something about the entertainment business. Maybe he wants to get into it. We've got Sean at Fort Belvoir, and he's asking, what is your pre-production process?
Oh man, I mean, that's so you have two different processes. Fortunately for me, I've been blessed enough to work in a studio system once. So that pre-production process is very grueling for them. It is almost where they lock you up. You just have to understand they're going to lock you up in those systems for close to a year. So you're developing a script, you're writing a script, everyone has a bunch of notes. you know, the person that work in the cafeteria want to tell you what, it's just a whole big old thing, man. Pre-production for an independent film is building this thing and getting it to go, period. Pre-production for me in our world is script, get it ready, get your money. Do you have your money? And now it becomes planning. So in other words, where are you going to shoot at? Can you get that location? Where's the talent going to stay? Where are they going to, like what city are you going to be in? Like all of these things you have to begin to put together. Now, what's great about independent film to me is you could actually do all of that stuff at once. So what I normally find myself doing is constantly, a script is never done when you're an independent artist like me, and here's what's funny, when you're an independent director and you're a giant director, in between, I don't think you have any say so. But I am constantly working on the screenplay. So, and I've learned that the biggest directors in the world are doing the same thing indie filmmakers are doing. Like you're always like, damn, I could change that, or let me fix that. So during your pre-production process, you are leaning on your producers to get your locations, get your cameras, your cinematographer, you and your DP are working so you can now begin to say, oh, I want this movie to look like that. So now you're working on your lighting schemes, you're working on your directing schemes, and then you're talking to you. Everything is happening at once till you get to one date where you're like, we start shooting June 1. And that's how pre-production works. Now, sometimes you don't have enough money for pre-production. And, you know, I'm just giving it to you guys raw. What that means is you're limping to the start. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I got $5. I got, Jimmy said he could be off on Tuesday, who I'm gonna use to shoot. You know what I mean? So you're just that's your pre-production. You know what I mean? So you gotta kind of build it when you're independent, however you can get there. Walk, crawl, limp, you know what I mean? Get in the wagon, but you gotta get to the start date. So pre-production means anything you have to do to get to that first day to actually say action.
That's a great explanation too of not only, you know, the different challenges faced by an independent film versus a big budget film, but also the process. Because I think the key difference is when you're an independent film, like you said, the first thing you got to do is find that money. With a big budget film, the money's there, so you can start the pre-production process in earnest. That was a great answer, Deon. Let's get to another one. This comes from Logan Haltom. And he says, when we found out about this Zoom session, my wife and I did a little research on you. I thought it was awesome, being a rap fan, to see that you directed Countdown for Snoop Dogg. What was it like to make a music video compared to making a movie?
Oh man, that was actually, you know what, when I first started out doing film, I was shooting anything I could shoot. And I everyone won't tell you that, but I kind of view film a lot like basketball or sports, right? You got to keep getting shots up. You know what I mean? Like if you really want to compete, if you really want to be a good shooter, if you really want to be a good ball player, whatever that is, you got to keep sparring and practicing. So when I first started out, I was shooting if you had a music video, I'm like, whatever that is, give it to me, man, let me shoot. And so years later, I was blessed, man, Snoop called me and was like, D, like, I want you to shoot, like, I got a new album, I want you to shoot this video. And he played the song for me. I'm like, oh man. And just going back to that world was like, it was very different for me because oftentimes most video directors they have learned a very, very good trait, but that trait doesn't always cross over to film. That trait is very cool, fast shots, right? So in other words, I can move the camera like this or turn it upside down or have the artist rapping upside down. All these little 5-second, 3-second clips, right? And that's how you get these really cool videos. Well, when you get into film doesn't play in clips. Film plays in a process where you are telling a narrative story. So a clip is the worst thing you could have in a film. You know what I mean? Like you want to hold a camera versus hold it, turn it. So going back to the Snoop video, I had to remember like, oh, you just got to be creative. You know what I mean? You can't tell a narrative story. you can, but it's a very eclectic way with video. So that was really fun. So what I ended up doing with that video, which I love, and I think that video has just crossed over 50 million or some views, but I ended up saying, man, I love Snoop in the 90s. So I was like, man, it would be so fantastic to make it a throwback. You know, right now we got The Last Dance. We got Mike Tyson punching people on Instagram. I'm like, man, we back. I'm like, we back in the 90s. So during that time, I was like, it would be great to see like a homage to what Snoop represented during that time. So I opened that video up, high speed, slow motion shots of the 6'4" Impalas to represent the, you know, the classic era that he came from. The Pendleton and all the stuff he was wearing was everything that he wore during the death row time. And I wanted that little 1 minute, 45-second song to represent his career. So I opened it up with the beginning of Snoop Dogg, which is a 6'4" Impala, the Pendleton, the death row chain. That was my first phase of it with him and Swiss Beats. And then the second phase of it was the new Snoop Dogg, which is basically the Bentley trucks, the kind of how we see stuff now, the black and white, the brand new imagery, the watches, all that stuff. And then the last piece of that video was Snoop on a school bus with kids, and the kids were dancing. And I did that because Snoop represents kids now with his football team, with what he does, you know, in the communities. And then also we wanted to have the kids be there instead of football kids because we wanted to express that the youth are vibrant. So although it was a very small video, I still was able to kind of figure out some linear information in it.
Rolling in his 6'4" with his mind on his money and his money on his mind. Yeah, that's my era too, dude. I wore out the Chronic. I had to buy another CD because I'm all about that, man. That's
so powerful, man. That was such a powerful time. I remember waiting in line. I was in college. I mean, I was at San Diego State when G-Thing came. I remember going to line at Tower Records and waiting for, like, in line for the Snoop album, the Snoop. Like, I was like, it just was a crazy time, the Chronic album. I was just like, what is this sound? Yeah. They got it right, man. They got it right.
He sure did, man. Between the Chronic and the Dogfather. And I just love that Dr. Dre really launched Snoop's career. He was so smooth and tight, and he was 21, 22 years old. I mean, he's a talent beyond belief.
I will say this, though, man. If we're talking film, here's what's interesting. Film music has always been a parallel to film and marketing. The first time I ever seen Snoop Dogg, ever, and realized, like, I was like, who is this dude? And it made me go to the movies, was Deep Cover. So that was like this. Remember, I don't know if you remember, but Dr. Dre and Snoop had the single for the movie Deep Cover with Lawrence Fishburne. And that's, you know, when I think back now, I go like, man, look at how instrumental music is with film. Like, that's like, you know, you hear that song now, you think of that film, and that's something I've been really trying to explore with what I'm doing now with film and music.
Yeah, you know, that's really cool. And to that same point, Deon, I don't know if you've seen the new documentary about Miles Davis, The Birth of the Cool. I think it's on.
I just got that. Yeah.
And he would score films, and he would just watch the film and play his trumpet to what he felt. And it was just such a cool way to score a movie, very much along the same avant-garde lines that you're talking about with Dr. Dre and Snoop. Let's get to one more question here. This comes from Adam in Bethesda. He wants to know, what's harder, getting started or being able to keep going? Very philosophical question there for you.
That's tough. What city is he in?
He's in Bethesda, Maryland.
That's a very hard question. I would have to say getting started. I would lean towards getting started, because if you put forth the work, seriously, man, like, I mean, goes beyond film. If you put in the work to get to somewhere, you're not going to stop working when you get there. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of like just a fighter's mentality. I believe, like, if you've really gotten to a place to where you've, like, sacrificed, you've worked your ass off, you went through all these trials and tribulations, you know what I mean? You pulled your hair out, you slept on the floor. You know, once you get going, like they would have to rip your heart out to make you stop. You know what I mean? Unless something's wrong with you, unless you like, oh, I love the challenge and now I'm here, I don't want to do it no more. I don't know if you're that type of person, but to me, like I would believe it's getting in, man, because getting the work, getting going, because everyone wants to do it until they realize how hard it is. You know what I mean? Everyone wants to do it. No one wants to practice. The reason that LeBron is so great and all these guys are great is they're working all year when you don't see them. And then when you see him, you're like, he really good, huh? It's like, no, he's been like working his off morning, noon, and night. He's dieting. He's sleeping in a chamber. He's, you know what I mean? You're doing all that stuff, and then you're seeing what the after effects of all that work is. And film is the same way, man. You go to the movies and you go, oh man, I love this film. You know what I mean? You're like, damn, I didn't realize that much work, that 200 people were working on that film, or you know what I mean? Somebody had that script for 10 years before it got made, or all those things you have to think about. So I would say it's getting going and then trusting yourself that once you get going independently, you will never look back.
And it's like what you were saying, Deon, when, you know, you had stars in your eyes, you wrote this screenplay, you thought, oh, I just go to LA and, you know, knock on the gate at Paramount Pictures and all of a sudden you'd be working. But a lot of the people who have those dreams and realize how hard it is, they might have turned away and stopped doing it, but you kept going, you know, you had perseverance, and, you know, your career is testament to that hard work that no one sees that you're talking about. And here's a good follow-up question. This comes from Jennifer at Joint Base San Antonio. When you feel inspiration is waning, when you feel creatively sapped, what do you do then? How do you stay fresh?
That's a very good question, because the creative bone or the creative juice, I know for me speaking personally, is everything I have. There are so many decisions you have to make when you kind of get yourself going. Like, what movie would you make? Like, what idea would you have? You know what I mean? You have 1,000 ideas, but you have to be able to weed through them and beat those movies out and see them in your head before you ever write down a page. And then you have to say, okay, what do I want to make? And also, what's going to be relevant in a year, right? Like, because it's going to take you a year or 2 years to get that film or that movie made. I think creatively, when I get worn out, strangely enough, I go watch movies. I don't always get to watch film a lot anymore. You know what I mean? You know, late at night, you're doing something because you're working on so much stuff. But I normally go watch film, or most recently, what I've been finding is like during this quarantine time, I've actually reverted back to watching the making of. I went back to where I started. So I started being like, I haven't watched a really good one. And I began going back now, because it's been some years, and watching all these other movies, how they're made. And it's re-sparking my thought process on, you know, there's a one on YouTube right now, James Cameron, the making of Titanic. It's like 3 hours long. And I found myself like on a treadmill the other day watching it. Like, this is crazy, all this stuff. It's so complex. It just makes you begin to be like, one of my idea. I kind of do that. I love walking, like no headphones on, just walking. Sometimes we get caught up in putting the things in your ears and exercising, and, you know, you hearing all this music. I found a lot of times, man, it's really good for me, like in mornings, to just take all that, turn all that off and just walk. I like just walking and thinking.
Back in tune with nature. You know, you're absolutely right. Sometimes we're so plugged in with everything that we lose a sense of the world around us. And I think you're right. This is a great time during lockdown to get out of your house and take a walk around and just really get back in touch with nature. By the way, you're in post-production on a project right now. Is that right?
We are actually in pre-production on 3 films.
Okay, so how has the lockdown and the quarantine affected that process? Are you still able to do as much pre-production work as you were able to under normal circumstances?
Yeah, for me, it's been great, man, because now I'm just kind of concentrating on script. I'm, you know, for the first time where I'm always going a million miles an hour, I'm able to kind of sit down and plug and pick at a script the same way a giant film would be able to. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, okay, let's make sure that word is right, that they're doing the right thing, that the characters are flowing the way they are. So Yeah, it's been really good for us because the only thing we were really worried about was Fatale, the film that we have coming out this year. It was a summer release. It was scheduled to come out June 19th everywhere. And we were like, we don't know what's going to happen. And we were blessed enough, man, for them to move that film to October 31st to Halloween. So we were blessed that way, man, because we could have easily been swept up and our film could have been sold to Netflix or, you know what I mean, one of these other places like all these bigger films are doing. But we got a really good movie, so I'm happy they kept the experience in the theater.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking about, Fatale. I didn't realize you were already locked and loaded and ready to go, but that's, it's interesting to hear from the director and producer's perspective how this lockdown has affected films coming up. We got one more question up here for you, Deon. This one comes from Tracy, and she would like to know, what advice do you have for young would-be filmmakers? What is the best advice given to you when you started out?
I didn't get any advice. That's what made it like extremely hard, man. Like, like so many things, we're first generation everything. You know what I mean? Like, mom never went to college, dad never went to college. You know what I mean? Parents never had a business. So we're first generation everything. So I'm first generation filmmaker, right? So didn't go to film school, don't know anyone that went to film school. So you don't really get the advice that you would normally get. That's why I kind of have been spending the last couple of years of my life as a filmmaker really dedicating a lot of time to stuff like this to make sure people hear the real truth, about how to get this stuff made. But I think my biggest advice would not be in the film form, more so than it would be in who you are as a person. My advice would be prepared to have a metaphysical death. And if you're not prepared to have that, then this ain't gonna be the business for you. You have to die multiple times. And what I mean by that is the movie's not gonna get made. The people are not gonna give you the money. The actors are not gonna show up. Hollywood's not going to buy your script. You know what I mean? You have to be in a place to where you don't believe everything I just told you. And when you get to that place where no matter how many times they say no, you still like, well, how about this way? You know what I mean? Or like, damn, but we could really still do it. It don't matter if, like, you got to get to that. You got to get to where you can see it and no one else can. And that doesn't mean becoming disgruntled. I mean, at times you're going to get mad. You're going to get upset. You're going to throw the out the window. You know what I mean? You're going to be like, this is stupid. I don't even know what I'm thinking. Like, you're going to do all of that. But you have to just hold your breath underwater and realize you're going to go on. You're going to pass out, but it's going to be okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's that type of thing, man. Because we've had so many experiences where I'm like, I think I'm dead. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, I don't know, like the lights are off. Do you know what I mean? Like, there is no money for gas. Like, I don't know if we're going to be able to make it next month. Like, when you start getting to that and you still kind of like, I think it's a way, now you're fighting. Now you're doing what you're doing. Like I said earlier, if it was easy, and this goes for everything, man. And I'll tell you where the drive comes from. The drive comes from me being a very, very good basketball player. And me getting mad at not like really getting a crack at the NBA, right? This just me being truthful with you. And finishing that, going after film, pursuing film, I don't understand if this was where I wanted to be. Like, this is where nothing would change. This is where I want to be. But what that did for me was years later, I looked back at basketball and I said, well, Deon, you didn't work hard enough. Like, you didn't die. Do you know what I mean? Like you did it your whole life. You worked out, you ran, you jumped, you played, you wanted it, you physically got it. Like, you did all of that. But now knowing what I sacrificed to get in the film, I did not sacrifice that energy for hoop, something that I loved, you know what I mean, to my core. Like, I didn't go knock on the GM's door of the Lakers and say, my name is Deon Taylor and I'm a 6'3" point guard and I need, like, I didn't do that. Do you understand what I'm saying? So when I think back now, I go like, damn, I didn't take those steps that I took in film, but it was also me going like in the back of my mind, knowing I didn't do everything I was supposed to do in that world. So now I'm going to make sure I never ever quit or never ever lose that energy in this world. So be prepared to have a metaphysical death and understand you can make this happen, period.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of our conversation. You've got to be willing, and I tell people this too when they ask me what it's like to, break into the business. You have to be willing to hear no 99 times in a row, go back that 100th time and hear no again,
yep.
And still be willing to go back and try it again. Because to a certain extent, trying is doing also. It's not that you want to be something, you're being that thing you want to be in the attempt. So that should serve as motivation for you. Deon, it's been such a pleasure visiting with you and hearing about what's going on with your career and what you've been up to during quarantine. Being from a military family, thank all of your family members for their service. And I want to give you an opportunity to speak directly to the servicemen and women who are watching now so you can give them your thanks. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. First of all, everyone out there that's watching this, listening to us, before we say anything more about film, let me just tell you, thank you so much for your contribution and what you represent for the country. With no hesitation, man, like you guys are on the front line, and in every capacity, you guys are why we are able to get up and move the way we move every day. So I really appreciate everyone out there, men and women. I will also tell everybody out there, man, because I do know military, I do have some crazy cousins, and I do know there is a very, very good energy of people that are looking to find out what they're going to do with their careers after the service, what they can do while they're in the service. And I will tell you, film and entertainment is a brilliant, beautiful thing, man. Oliver Stone, military man, you know what I mean? His vision for, movies like Platoon, and, he was able to actually capture an entire world that he lived in. You know what I mean? And I would encourage everyone out there to really, really, really be patient, but figure out if you're interested, if you're watching this Zoom, this means that you're interested in film and television and entertainment. And it doesn't mean if you're a musician, a rapper, a singer, if you play the guitar, if you play the sax, whatever it is you're trying to do in the entertainment film, I would tell you all, go fight for that. Go fight for that, man. We're only young for so long. And the reality is you wake up one day, like my dad would tell me, you wake up one day and you're old. You know what I mean? You ain't got the fight no more, man. You ain't got the hunger no more. Why you still could take those shots, take them. My advice to you all would be, while you could take those shots, take them, man. Take them where if you miss multiple times, you're like, all right, I'm hanging these shoes up. At least you can now still rebound and get back to what you were doing. But take the shot, man. Like, don't be that person where in 10 years from now, you're like, I really was good at music, but I got busy with go do the stuff. Go do it, man, because we need it. You know what I mean? And especially now, man, entertainment is escapism. So much is going on right now. A lot of people are paying attention to Hollywood based on the fact that it is the biggest thing that we export is film and entertainment. We export Batman and Superman and Marvel and Avengers and The Intruder and Black and Blue. This is the only space in the world where someone can put a movie out over a weekend and it will make 5, 6, 7, 800x, right? 1, 2 billion, 3 billion, $4 billion in 2 weeks. It's film. And I'm just happy that everyone there was able to watch us. Thank you so much. If anybody is out there, I'm on Instagram. My thing is Deon Taylor. What's my Instagram? Just Deon Taylor. And I'm on there.
Just search Deon Taylor. He'll pop up.
Yeah, I'll pop up. I'll be like, bam, right on your thing, man. Like, come look at what we doing, man. And I'm always kind of doing these things on my page, was called The Black Chair, where I'm interviewing people like Jamie Foxx and Tyrese and up and coming directors. And we just talk like this. And they're all on my page. So if you're really interested in hearing more stuff like this, go to that page and kind of scroll around, and you'll see you probably see 50 interviews like this.
Yeah, very cool. Deon, Cannot thank you enough for joining us here. And I guess the last thing would be to go see The Golden Child. So then you and Deon can have a discussion.
Go see The Golden Child, man. Please. Hey, yo, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go buy that movie now on Apple TV.
I love it. Deon Taylor, thank you so much for joining us here on the USO MVP Entertainment Series. Stay safe, man. I'll talk to you soon. And for everybody who zoomed in, thank you for your service.
Yes, sir. Get to the chopper.